Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Oh No No No, the Raith Rovers podcast. This is hopefully going to become a very quickly recurring feature as we go through the trials and tribulations of this season's championship, next season's premiership, wherever else it happens to take us. My name's Duncan Cameron. I've got the honour of hosting this very first episode. And joining me, we have the captain of this particular ship, Robbie Weir. How are you, Robbie?
I'm very good, Duncan, and I'm very glad that we're able to get started with this.
Thank you. Fresh from his trip to the Ayrshire coast, Kev Barretto is with us. How are you, Kev?
Hi, yeah, good. Cheers, Duncan. Excellent to be involved. Cheers.
Magic. And also back from Ayr, no stranger to a microphone, it's John Greer. How are you, John?
I'm very well, guys. Great.
Magic. So what we're going to do today, we might well be making our debut, but we're keen to get stuck in and we've got a lot to talk about. So primarily, we are going to have a big deep dive into Saturday's victory over Ayr United. We're going to have a quick look at Dundee United coming up on Saturday, although there will be a full pod to follow where a whole new panel will look into that one. And then we're going to finish up today with a big question. So I've got a question I'm going to ask the guys, and you at home can absolutely chip in on that one as well. So first of all, I know that two of you guys were down at Ayr yesterday. Robbie, I think you managed to catch the full game as well. I've seen the highlights, so I'll chip in where I can, but it's very much over to you guys to talk me through everything that you saw yesterday. So who wants to kick us off with their thoughts on Raith Rovers 2, or sorry, Ayr United 1, Raith Rovers 2?
John?
I'm happy to go, yeah. I thought different to Airdrie, we started the game very well and we're on the front foot from the beginning. I think the first thing was, as we were driving down, the team list was released, and quickly you saw we only had one central defender, and we had our two main strikers, who I would imagine would be everybody's two main strikers, would be Jamie Gullen and Jack Hamilton. They were on the bench, so it was going to be interesting to see how this was going to pan out with the team, but quite quickly, I think everybody saw it was quite a fluid lineup where the front boys were all very, very interchangeable, and there was good movement, and we seemed to start quite well. Kev, what was your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, same as yourself with the lineup, because I've really enjoyed watching Jack Hamilton. I was quite surprised that he didn't start, although I thought it's got to be Callum Smith and Louis Vaughan, one of them with him. I thought when he was on his own with Airdrie, it just didn't work. But when he didn't start, I was a bit surprised. But like you say, John, like the early parts of the game, you could just see the movement, like Callum Smith like challenging, like Lewis Vaughan like running all over the place doing little flicks. It was really beautiful to watch, and I'll get into the game a little bit, because there's one bit in particular. I don't know if you were able to see this, Robbie, and if you remember it, John, but Louis Vaughan got hold of the ball. I think it was about three Rovers players surrounded the Ayr United players, and Louis started an amazing one-touch move that was just hit himself, Callum Smith, Dylan Easton, and Sam Stanton. I can't remember if Josh Mullen was in there as well. And it was just so fluid. Myself and my pal who was with was just thinking, beautiful football, absolutely beautiful. Yeah. So that was a highlight for me. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the highlights package because I don't think it led to a goal or anything. But that was a mark of and completely agreeing with John that it just felt as though we were playing beautiful football, unlike some of the misplaced passes that were happening against Airdrie.
Yeah, I fully agree with it. With what Kev said, I mean, I think that you looked at the lineup, and obviously we've got a WhatsApp chat on the go, and I think there was a bit of trepidation. Obviously, Scott Brown comes into centre back, as you rightfully mentioned, and that means that we put Sam Stanton a bit further back, which maybe sort of for a lot of people you're a bit uncertain about. But yeah, it just worked magically. As Kev says, some of the football that we played, particularly in the run up, obviously we'll cover this in a bit, but the second goal, liquid football to sort of get that move on the go. There was plenty in the first half as well, just to be really positive. But I think the thing that stood out for me was that it was very noticeable that against Airdrie, we didn't really press as high, whereas against Ayr, the big noticeable change that you saw the sort of aggression from the forwards to move forward. You saw sort of your Callum Smith. You've got obviously Lewis Vaughan in there as well. Both sort of really aggressively pushing forward to try and sort of put Ayr under a bit of pressure. And I think Ayr really, really struggled with that in the first half in particular, which is obviously saw us get our goals just with how we were moving forward.
So that was on the kind of the Raith TV commentary that I listened to. Kirstine and Davey were in agreement that first half was the best half, even setting aside the goals, the best half that the boys have played this season. Would you agree with that, having seen it?
Yeah, I would. The other thing is as well, which we haven't touched on, is the fact that I thought Sean Byrne had his best game for us. For me, he was my man of the match yesterday because he just did so much good work. He wins the ball and he just plays the easy ball. But he's also very good at, and Ayr got frustrated because he gets himself between the ball and the opponent, and he goes down and wins fouls, breaks up play. He's been a really good addition to our squad, I think.
I think you're absolutely right. That decision to put Scott Brown back into the defence, I don't think you can do that if you don't have Sean Byrne, because that whole system of essentially letting all your number 10s go and interchange out in front really relies on someone doing all those hard yards. And Sean Byrne's been excellent since he came in, and certainly sounds like yesterday was his best game. And in terms of
sorry, can I just come in there, Duncan? Yeah, totally agree. I thought Sean Byrne, my goodness, he's got a composure. I don't understand why Dundee have let him go, to be honest. He seems to just, his first touch, make a bit of space for himself, quite often with a little turn before he passes it. He seems to be able to give himself time to look around and see exactly what he should be doing. And he's just a classy player, I think.
And that, to contrast that to last week at Airdrie, do you think that was almost Scott Brown and Sean Byrne being too similar last week, almost stepping on each other's toes, and that giving, almost moving one of, as much as literally Scott Brown dropped into the defence, you're really freeing up an extra midfielder further up the park with that? Do you think that kind of helped the team yesterday?
Maybe did. And the other thing is as well, I think last week, with having Jack Hamilton playing up front, I think we relied too much on trying to play the long ball up to Jack Hamilton. And I'm not criticising Jack, because I thought he did a good job last week, and he probably had one of his better games last week. But he was isolated too often last week. We didn't have anybody up alongside him. His knock-ons weren't going to anybody. There was nobody running onto them. Occasionally, at the start of the game, Sam Stanton did that. But I think the way we were set up yesterday meant we didn't focus on playing a long ball forward early. And I thought the difference was so much greater. And Sam Stanton, we all know about Sam Stanton, and he has this ability where he looks like the defender has the ball and he just kind of extends out his leg and scoops it back from them. I don't know how to describe that. It's it's quite remarkable, and I think he revelled in that situation yesterday as well. The linking between everybody was tremendous.
Yeah. Just on the Scott Brown thing, I funny enough, agree with you, Duncan, that the last couple of games, I mean, I love Scott Brown. I think he's someone who just puts his head on the block every time. But the last couple of games, I think something's just not been quite right with his passing and even his challenges. And I thought him moving into Keith Watson's space, that seemed to work very well for one thing, but also, like you say, it freed up Sean Byrne to get more involved with some of the attacking stuff. I'm absolutely wanting to come in with what John said about Sam Stanton, because sorry, Robbie, I don't.
It's fine. Keep going.
But oh my goodness. There's something about it. Now, I'm not particularly a stats person, but I would be interested to know what percentage of 50-50s he's getting, because he seems to get every 50-50 that he goes for. And also, from getting the challenge in and getting the ball, it's like a seamless move into turning into a forward run or a pass or something. And I thought he was wonderful yesterday, and I'm going to slightly disagree with John and say that although Dylan Easton was brilliant as well, in fact the whole team I thought was superb. Like Sam Stanton was certainly my player of the first half.
Yeah, I think that, to be honest, I agree with both of you, obviously, that they've had excellent games, Stanton and Byrne. I think that Byrne, very interesting player, just because he's been obviously sort of almost pushed out the door at Dundee, and their loss, as far as we're concerned, is very much our game. He's done tremendously well coming in. He's complemented Scott Brown, taken a bit of the load, because last season, I think at times it was very difficult. You'd see sort of Scott Brown in that holding role, but without really any support. Whereas now we can move into that 4-2-3-1 that we've been really sort of successful in terms of our results anyway, deploying. Sam Stanton, if you listen to the sort of Raith TV commentary that's been put out with the close-up highlight of the game, Davy Hancock sums it up, just sort of saying he just does things that just seem superhuman almost. I know that he's obviously out of contract at the season, and I think that's been mentioned quite heavily towards sort of by the other fans on sort of Pine Bovril and things. And I think tying him down would be a really, really good statement of intent, really, for how we're progressing forward as a club. Obviously, I'm sure that the club are well aware of it, and I get that there's going to be other teams that will be looking at Stanton and thinking, wow, he can definitely do a job. It wouldn't surprise me if there was teams sort of in the bottom six. But again, we're a club that are building a project here, and I think that it's very important to sort of say that we're a club that's going out with statements of intent, the signings that we've made in the summer. So hopefully you'll look at that and say, yeah, this is a project that I still want to be involved with. It's a really good group of players. It seems a really good group of lads. So hopefully you can tie up a new deal and keep us happy.
Yeah, I think the thing with Sam Stanton for me is he's almost taken Scott Brown's mantle from last season, where he's the only one who does his job. So last season, we had Scott Brown. He was brilliant for the first fairly extended spell of the season. And then he picked up that injury, and we really struggled for a good few weeks because we just didn't have another proper dig-in kind of holding midfielder in the way that we now have Sean Byrne. And I think Sam Stanton now becomes that real kind of driving force. He's almost a bit of a kind of throwback midfielder, Sam Stanton, when you stack him up against the rest of those guys, because if you were mapping him out on a football pitch in terms of where is his best position, it's in that kind of number 10 role behind a striker, but he plays box to box. He's all over the place, and I think he really lets everyone else do a lot of the interchange, as you said, Kev, with the Lewis Vaughan just being the kind of pivot in these triangles. Sam Stanton's doing a lot of hard yards to kind of allow that to happen. Just to look at kind of the other aspect of the game yesterday, second half, Ayr scored, relatively early on in that second half. How nervy did that get versus how confident were you as that game goes on? Because that's a fairly slender lead for a fairly long time.
Well, can I just say it seemed typical Rovers, in the fact that we never seemed to start the second half very well. I don't know what it is, whether we come out and we allow the other team to get on the ascendancy, but we always, I'd love to read stats, as Kev said, about how many goals we lose in the first 10 minutes of second halves, because we want to, I'm sure it's something the club, the team are working on, because after we lost the goal, we did have to weather a bit of a storm, and then some sort of thing. Kev, what was your?
Yeah. Exactly the same, actually, John. I certainly thought, oh god, here we go, because here we're putting a bit of pressure on. The first half with them. Callum Smith, Stanton, and all the rest pressing and really mucking up Ayer's passing games. Start of the second half, like John said, that they definitely were creating a few chances. And if their strikers had been better, you could have seen them coming back into the game and scoring a couple even. So yeah, I don't know what happened. Maybe because we played so well in the first half that there was. I'm sure Ian Murray wouldn't allow it, but it felt as though there was almost a little bit of complacency that we're the better team, we're going to win this, and Ayr with hard work and some good passing definitely came back into it, and for maybe about 5 or 10 minutes, it felt as though there was an equaliser coming.
Yeah, but the thing is, sorry, Robbie, the thing is, Duncan, you did say how nervy we get. We did get nervy, but there is a resilience about us this season that hasn't been there. Earlier in the season, Morton came and they tried to be the tough guys and come in with their strong arm tactics, and we've got more about us now. Even yesterday, you've got Keith Watson's missing, but you've got Ewan Murray, who took a terrible tumble early on, and I thought, this is going to be it. We're going to have no central defenders. But Ewan Murray, I don't remember him being. I remember him being a good defender, but the amount of last minute throwing himself into blocks that he's done since he came back has been remarkable. And there was one yesterday again where he threw himself into a block, which was just superb, and there seems to be a unity about them that seems to be growing week by week. It's also remarkable that we've done this talk so far and we've not really discussed Dylan Easton's performance.
I think we'll come on to Easton in a minute. For me, that whole back line, they did superb yesterday, given it was very makeshift. One person I really do want to call out was Kevin Dabrowski, because that save in the second half, just outstanding, especially when you see it back and you look at it and he's just got a glove to it, and it's the fine margins. And Ayr, they did really well to come back into it. Obviously, I think that you're very rarely going to have a game where you dominate for the full 90 minutes. There's always sort of that period where I think it does look a bit shaky, and I think Ayr managed to capitalise on that. But definitely going forward, we weren't certainly out of it. It wasn't one-way traffic. We still had a really good chance to make it 3-0 just before they got their goal to make it 2-1. But yeah, to go on to Ewan Murray though, I've sort of heard from first-hand sort of anecdotes as such that he's been absolutely stellar with the younger players in the squad, sort of like just going to the gym with them and just taking his time to sort of impart his wisdom. All the back line have seemingly been really good with the younger lads. And he's been absolutely phenomenal. He's kind of flown under the radar, I feel, because obviously there was a bit of I feel like some of our fans maybe sort of raised the question, oh, he's came back after he left us under those circumstances. But the way that he's acquitted himself is sort of, I've not heard any sort of doubters or questions after that. And it's a testament to the guy. And I think that, to be fair, football's a very short career. And I think that you've just got to have that mindedness about it to sort of let him come back in, do his job, which he's doing very, very well. And just to sort of say, yeah, fair play. Came back under those circumstances and he's looked a great signing so far.
Yeah, he seems like a good egg. I really like Ewan Murray. And as you say, Johnny, he's in that kind of Colin Hendry mode at the moment where he's just throwing himself around. And I think Ian Murray said in his post-match interview, he's been struggling with that shoulder for the last couple of weeks. You take a big knock in the first 5 minutes and that could ruin a game for a lot of players. So full credit to him for coming back and seeing out the full game and playing well as he did it. Right, John.
Yeah, just sorry, just very quickly on that. I thought, well, when he had that injury, he took a couple of painkillers, I think, and you could see for about 10 minutes that he was struggling. He was holding his arm a few times, and like you say, how he came back from that, and just it's like, no, I'm going to put my body on the line for the team and not bother about whatever's like sore or whatever. Yeah, definitely. And just again, that whole thing that John said earlier about the resilience in the Rovers team, I think Ewan Murray just shows that. But throughout the team, like, people are throwing their bodies in front of the ball and sorry, there's a few things covered because that Kevin Dabrowski save that you mentioned, Robbie, bloody hell! We all thought that was in. It was like, what the fuck? Superb, absolutely superb.
I think that's what we're going to get from Kevin Dabrowski. Some of the saves we've seen from him already have been unreal. And look, there's a trade-off. His kicking is not the best by any means, but I don't care. I'm quite happy to see him throwing himself around and making big saves, and
there was
quite
one
unashamedly
in the second half which was very funny, and that there was something like an offside, I think, for Ayr. It was basically the ball got called back and our player took a shot, and even still then Kevin Dabrowski is pulling out this ridiculous camera save for it, just to sort of just almost in a way shithouse. But yeah, he just seems a lovely guy. Just seems a really, really nice guy, and he's the type of person that you do want to do well.
I love big characters, and that's definitely what Kev Dabrowski is.
There was one moment where he was a wee bit indecisive, and I'm not sure Scott Brown called him a lovely guy during that where he had to make the clearance, but he is a lovely guy.
Yeah. I felt for him a couple of weeks ago when he made that incredible save at the back post against Cali Thistle, and Keith Watson was just balling him out for not coming for the cross. It's like, give him 4 seconds to at least bask in that an incredible reflex save. But obviously, like all goalkeepers, I think you need time to settle with a new defence, and that defence has been chopped around a fair bit. But we've got a couple of minutes left on this game. So, John, why don't you wax lyrical about Dylan Easton for us?
Well, Dylan Easton yesterday epitomised everything about his game. He's I can see where opposition fans will hate him, because we hate players that come and do what he does. But yesterday, his movement, the way, well, he was set up beautifully for both goals by Sam Stanton, but by no means were they easy finishes. Yesterday he was just brilliant, the way he came on. And as a supporter, when you've got a guy that scores 2 goals like he did, and he runs with his fingers in his ears. That's all you want to see him doing, isn't it? It was just really, really brilliant.
There was some lovely booing on that that highlights package. Really, really good. And just very quickly, Robbie, I'll let you come in. But I don't know if you caught this on the highlights. Seconds, like literally maybe half a second before Dylan Easton smashes in the goal for the first one, you hear a guy shout, "Come on now, they're taking the piss."
That's right. That's right. I heard that.
It's just lovely. Really, really good.
It's just he's a player that when he gets onto his game, I think there's some games where obviously it might not happen for him, but he's the type of player where you will show up and pay your money to watch a player like Dylan Easton. And he's had that effect across his sort of career in terms of the clubs that he's been at. Everyone's known that he's a bit of a sort of maverick, mercurial talisman. But yesterday, it was much like the Cliftonville game that we played a few weeks back. Sometimes you just see him and he's in the mood and he'll just size up a defender and they start backing off and you think, oh, this player's in trouble. This player is very much in trouble. And that happened yesterday. And it's like I said in the WhatsApp chat, you could just hear at one point, I don't know whether it was a younger person or whether it was a woman, but you just heard, oh, for God's sake, someone half him. And you think, aye, that's it. But aye, as you say, a very torrid time for the air defence to try to handle Dylan Easton.
And just before we move on, word about that travelling support. That was like a pretty decent away end to be in yesterday. Good numbers. I think possibly the best numbers I've seen us take down Ayr for a while. Yeah,
very much so. I was speaking to Graham Meldrum, who lives in Ayr, or quite close to Ayr, who's a big Rovers man, and I was saying, why weren't we behind the goals? But seemingly you've got to guarantee a crowd of 400, but I would think it was touching 400. Kev, what's your...
Yeah. I was saying to the fellow I was with, around about 350 to 400.
Yeah.
And it was a lively crowd, maybe because we were in that small area of the stand, that kind of improved the atmosphere, because the singing was pretty much non-stop. And of course, Dylan Easton putting on a show and it was a decent atmosphere and good support, I thought.
Yeah, as you say, Kev, that maybe backfires against the home club when they cram you all in together, and they make it a better atmosphere for us,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did see that before the game, and they said that we wouldn't be getting the railway end, and that the Rovers fans would be in the West stand. And I don't know if anyone at Ayr United's ever taken the trouble to get a compass out, but that's not where that stand is. Anyway, that's a very minor point. Let's have any final points? Anything else anyone wants to add on that victory over Ayr United before we move on?
Can I? Well, hopefully this isn't being a mood hoover, but one thing about Dylan Easton, whilst definitely fans love all that and the fingers in his ears and everything like that. One thing you can see that refs are looking out for him a bit because he does, get a bit excited sometimes, and like a minute after whatever incident it is, he's still shouting at the ref and. I just hope that he doesn't get too many bookings and suspensions and stuff for that side of thing. But having said that, if it was about him carrying that on and carrying on the rest of his beautiful play and winding up opposition fans, then no, I wouldn't swap it.
Quite right. Right, okay. Let's have a look at Saturday to come. It's a top of the table clash. We haven't had many of those over the last couple of years. So Dundee United come to town. I did mention earlier there will be a full podcast to come later in the week. Lineup still to be confirmed. I think we'll get some fresh faces. Anybody bold enough to make a prediction at this early stage?
I'm going to hopefully go for a 1-0 Rovers win with Dylan Easton carrying on his fine form for me. So.
Excellent. John, how about you? How do you see this one going?
I think it'll be another tough game, but it'll be a good measure of where we are, won't it? It'll be one of these games. I'm sure it'll be quite quite a toughie playing against them. I don't know too much about their team at the moment. I know Kai Fotheringham, that was on loan to us, has started to get a game, and he scored a few goals. But it'll be good to have a good atmosphere at Starks Park, a big crowd, and something to look forward to, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in there and just say that I'd noticed earlier on that as of this afternoon, they only had something like 100 tickets left in the North Stand to sell, which is, to be fair, a tremendous effort. Obviously, Dundee United, I mean, let's make no qualms about it, they're obviously got a far larger support than ourselves. And realistically, I don't think any other players, when they initially signed, aside from the players that came in this season, have thought, oh, I'm going to be playing championship football. They would be aiming for top six of the top flight. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see as well whether with the railway stand, what happens with that, because obviously there's the option for the club to obviously to sort of go for the singing section for the Rovers fans. I know we did it against Dunfermline, and the Community Foundation have done that. I know there might be a temptation to sort of say, okay, we could do any overspill for United into there, but would that really be fair on our own fans, who we need to be looking after first? So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that and the direction the club take.
I could be wrong. I think Andy Barrowman made an allusion to that in his interview a couple of weeks ago, where he basically said that they won't be, moving Rovers fans about. That essentially that move to the kind of singing section, which I don't think's been a kind of overwhelming success so far, but really I think this was Andy Barrowman's point, was that you have to invest the time and the commitment to actually doing it. Yeah. And that if that means turning away an extra couple of hundred away fans to prove to your own fans that you're committed to it and you think it's a good idea and you want it to be long term, then so be it. And I'm fully behind the commitment and the intention behind that. Kev, how do you see this one going?
I'm interested to see what team Ian Murray puts out. I mean, I think it's going to be a close game. I'll be happy with taking a point, but if we play the football we played in the first half last week, I could see 3 points maybe. But I know it's a bit of a cliche, but with the wealth of riches that we've got, including on the bench, you just don't know how he's going to set up. But I hope it's an attacking formation again.
So that's I think there's two big questions for Ian Murray, and invariably he won't do what I think he's going to do, and then we'll get a result, which is fine by me. But as I look at it, I think you've got two big questions. One is Jack Hamilton. Everybody understands the benefits of having that big kind of focal point in a game where you might spend periods under the gun. But we tried that. Airdrie didn't particularly work. Didn't have it against Ayr, and it did. So big question there. And I think the second one is that base of the midfield. So again, you've got two natural holding midfielders that you could play. Again, did that against Airdrie, didn't particularly come off for us, but it has done in other games. I think it would be very bold to only go with that one midfielder. I don't particularly want to get into drawing tactics on Subbuteo pitches, but that sort of 4-1-3-2 is very attacking and puts a huge onus on Sean Byrne or Scott Brown, whoever that is. But again, as I say, whatever I think Ian Murray might do, he does the opposite, and it tends to work for him. That's why he does what he does, and I do whatever I'm doing. So I think that is going to be a very interesting decisions. And a lot of that, obviously, is going to depend on who's available as much as anything. I think if Keith Watson's fit, you really have to put him back in. I think that's probably guaranteed. Although there seem to be competing rumours from yesterday. So Keith Watson was spotted carrying a set of crutches. Yeah. And there's you might be able to clear this up for us, John, but there's disagreement as to whether they're his crutches or whether he was just carrying Dylan Corr's crutches for him.
No, Dylan Corr had a set of crutches and Keith Watson had a set of crutches. The good news was Ross Matthews, who was there, had no set of crutches, so that was good. So that I'm not sure how long term the injury is that Keith Watson's got. I know it's his knee, and it was something he picked up in training and did a fitness test before the Airdrie game, and then broke down injured. So I think as you say, next week's formation will depend on who's available. But I would imagine, even just sitting here thinking about it, I think Jack Hamilton will come back into the team next week. I don't see us going against Dundee United with the same formation we had yesterday. I think we'll try and play with Jack Hamilton up front and build off him. That would be how I would imagine we'll play.
Who's coming out of that team then, John? If you're bringing Hamilton back in, who's coming? So Smith, Vaughan, Stanton, Easton, Mullen. Maybe
Mullen's the one to drop out again, but it's not my decision to make, is it? You know, going from the squad we had last year, where we're going with two outfield midfielders, to having a squad now that's got so many variations in it is quite amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's always interesting to sort of listen to what other people are saying. And I know before the start of the season, a lot of people, obviously Dundee United were naturally the favourites, especially when they bring in the likes of Lewis Moult, and a player who's done very, very well for Motherwell in the past. But then you sort of look at the players that we bring in, and I think a lot of people sat up and says, oh, Kirkcaldy, Gretna, etc. And obviously that's quite clearly not the case, because Andy Barrowman comes out and says that we were a little bit over budget, but that's been alleviated with the recent loan moves and things. But yeah, it's when you look at it and you hear people like Doug Emery come out and obviously say that we were making a big noise, very, very distinctive from Ian Murray. Has continually said, we're just trying the best for the club. We're just trying to better ourselves. We're just trying to be better for Kirkcaldy as well, and I completely agree with sort of the mentality that he's came in there with, which is, it's really refreshing to hear, because I don't think you hear it about from a lot of sort of managers. It just feels like at the moment, the positivity about the place, regardless of how we've been playing on the pitch, has just been fantastic. And kudos to all the board, obviously. I know a lot of people will probably sort of say it, but it's probably symptomatic that of how well the club's doing, that we're sort of looking at making sure that we've got these outlets like podcasts. You're looking at things like the Raith TV interviews. I know that we were both at the Volunteers Day in the summer, the volunteer meeting.
Yep.
And it's just, everyone's just feeling very, very optimistic about how the club are. And I don't think a lot of clubs at our level can sort of say that. They've got a lot of drama behind the scenes, a lot of questions about management. Very easy to fall into that pattern, but it seems just for now, we'll just keep doing what we're doing and just see how things go.
Absolutely. And I think we're guaranteed a good atmosphere next week. It looks almost guaranteed that away end's going to be sold out. Should be a very, very strong home support as well. But no, I'm a coward. I'd take a point. Right. So let's move on to the final portion of today's episode. So this is what I have tentatively called the big question. And today's big question is inspired by the win over Ayr United, where there were some accusations of, and I think this is maybe a bit much, but accusations of dark arts from some of the Rovers players, and a somewhat inflammatory gesture from Ross Millen towards the home fans at full time, which I will not be going into any further detail on. So my big question, what I would like to hear from each of you today is, what is the best or your favourite piece of shithousing that you've seen in a Rovers game, or indeed anywhere else? And Robbie, I know you were keen to jump in on this, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so the man, the myth, the legend that is Mr. Ross Matthews. COVID season ends under circumstances that infuriated a certain Gary Miller of the Falkirk loyal, who obviously the league gets called, we get promoted. Ross Matthews with his tin of tenants celebrating in Falkirk tears, supping away. We draw Falkirk in the cup, and naturally I tweeted Ross Matthews the night before with my signature Kylian Mbappe tears. saying that if he scores tomorrow, you absolutely have to be in front of the Falkirk fans doing that. Who scores? Ross Matthews. Straight away, without hesitation, without any delay, he's immediately opening his can of tears and drinking them in front of that home support. It was just absolutely lovely to see. It's the type of thing, I couldn't believe that he did it. And I remarked to my friends at the time, I was just like, oh, it's Ross Matthews that scored. Oh, he's running over to their support. Oh, he's drinking their tears. He's just, just classic Ross Matthews. He's just got that little bit of shithousery about him that he's very subtle about it. It's maybe not as not in that instance, but yeah, very good at doing that sort of thing.
Excellent. Yeah, that was good fun. It was a good game. Kev, have you got an answer for the big question?
Well, I tried to think about Christian Nadia at Hibs because that was very enjoyable. But I couldn't really remember it well enough. So I'm going to actually go out of Scotland for my favourite bit, which hopefully you'll all remember this. It was Swansea City playing it in a League Cup game against Chelsea, and the ball boy. Do you remember? With Eden Hazard. Unbelievable! I've never seen anything like that in my life. It was just quality. That Chelsea needed to score in the last few minutes. The ball had gone out for a goal kick. The ball boy lay on top of it for a couple of seconds. And it was just crazy. Eden Hazard went to try and retrieve it, and the ball boy wasn't giving it up. So Eden Hazard tried to kick it out from under him, but basically he got the ball back. The ball boy tried to. It was funny because he tried to make out that he got his rib broken or something like that. Got escorted off by a couple of other ball boys. He was a wee lad, probably about 14, 15 years old or something like that. But had a little smirk on his face whilst trying to look as though he was in pain. So, I mean, you can see it on YouTube, but the thing is, before the game, he'd actually tweeted something about he was going to be the best Swansea ball boy ever, and it was just highly entertaining. And Eden Hazard got a red card for it as well, which since I'm not a fan of Chelsea, I was quite happy with that.
Before we jump to John, can anyone remember the incident at Aberdeen with the ball boy up there? I can't remember who it was against, but there was something like a ball boy. Player comes over to collect the ball and he chucks it away, and the player's obviously fuming. And the sports scene camera pans directly to him, and he's watching the game, and he just turns and looks at the camera and gives a wee wink, and you're just thinking, that's sensational, man. But yeah,
and that the ball boy from that Swansea incident, Kev, he's a millionaire now.
Yeah.
Yeah. He owns like a premium vodka company or something.
Yeah.
You know, fair play. John, what about you? What's your favourite piece of dark arts?
Well, I obviously watched the Rovers through. I started watching them in the 60s, watched them in the 70s, and the dark arts that I remember is we had a player called Malky Robertson, and he was absolutely a genius footballer, really good footballer, but he could turn a 0-0 into a 1-0 with a quite spectacular dive for a penalty. He was legendary at doing it, the type of thing you hated against you. But I remember one game against Dunfermline on New Year's Day, 0-0, and it's looks like the game's drifting away, and Malky did it. Malky Robertson also ripped Dunfermline new assholes in a cup tie. But, you know, we used to hate this kind of thing going on against us. But now you've got Ross Millen. Ross Millen has got this great ability of bringing an extra ball into play when need be. You know, we've got it through the team now, which is quite nice. You know, we could forget Robbie Thompson's calling out the Dundee players last season, which was absolutely wonderful, you know, as they're coming out, yeah, that's no long run up. You're not very confident. You're going to change your mind. Oh, you've hit the post. No, it was, and the fact that it was caught on camera by Robbie, mild-mannered Robbie, you know, it was just sheer brilliance, wasn't it?
That was really good. He might have been as well wearing like a lapel mic for how well that was picked up in that. It was really, really good. Right, well, I'll tell you, I'm going to give you an answer as well, but I'm going to balance it out a little bit because I think this really goes into the category of anti-shit housing, which is back in 2007, we were playing a very bad game at home to Stirling Albion, and they took the lead with 4 minutes to go. And one Robert Snodgrass, whatever happened to him, decided to try and buy some time, and he dived over an Ian Davidson challenge. And just as he was thinking about kind of rolling around and taking up some time, Davo just turned around and just bluttered the ball into his face and then just wandered down the tunnel. Just didn't wait. Just like, nah, fed up with this.
That was the season of the Marvin Andrews tackle, the Marvin Andrews tackle in the playoffs, which was probably the greatest slide tackle that you will ever see in your life. Stephen Bell's going down the wing and he takes a heavy touch and the ball goes in front and you see Marvin Andrews and he starts powering. Now, obviously, Big Marv's not the quickest, but when he gets going, you know that it's going to be interesting. When
there was momentum behind him.
It was the very stoppable force against a very movable object in that case. And he might as well have taken the ball, the man, the railway stand, half a ball where he's J-block. He just went straight through him and he won. Not only did he win the ball, it goes off Stephen Bell, who's then taken off injured. And Stirling players are going ballistic. They're all crying that Stephen Bell's career could have been over. And he's actually won the throw-in, and he walks off and high-fives Kevin Fotheringham, which was fantastic to see. So, that's
I remember that very clearly. Excellent. Right, I think that's going to bring us to the close for this inaugural episode of Oh No No No, the Raith Rovers podcast. We are on Twitter. The handle for that is the very easy to say ONNN podcast. Also on YouTube at the slightly easier at Oh No 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 podcast. If you could please follow and subscribe on either or both of those platforms, that would be particularly handy. Please also send us in your favourite shithousing moments. We'll have a look at them and we'll recap the best ones next time out. I did say we will be back later in the week with a whole new panel to look at the Dundee United match that's coming up on Saturday. So all that's left for me to do is to say thank you to Robbie, to Kev and to John for joining me. Thank you to the other guys behind the scenes. There's been a lot going on in the Raith Rovers podcast world this week. Also, thank you very much to David Latto for allowing us the use of his excellent version of Geordie Munro for the intro piece. And thank you very much to you for listening. So I am going to say goodbye. And gentlemen, I'll allow you the time to say goodbye as well.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.